having a bad teacher, not using English in real life at all, not putting in enough time, having unrealistic expectations, and speaking in a too complicated fashion. Hello friends, welcome back to M's Language Academy. I'm M, and today I'm not going to talk about any particular grammar or vocabulary. I just thought I would make a video about learning English or learning a foreign language in general. I've been learning English for over 30 years and teaching it for over 10. As a teacher, I've spoken to many students, and some of them have been more successful than others. And lately, I've been thinking long and hard about what separates a successful student from a less successful one. And I've come up with 5 simple steps that everyone can follow in order to improve their English or any foreign language for that matter. And this video will be especially important for people who have been struggling with learning a language. So here are 5 simple steps that you can follow to drastically improve your English and finally make a breakthrough. So number 1, find a good teacher. I strongly believe that as of yet, you can't really learn English properly without a good teacher. It's true that the internet now offers many different tools and applications that allow us to improve our English. And in 5 years' time, maybe the best teacher you can get will be some sort of AI. But as things stand at the moment, I believe that you still need a human teacher to guide you through the process. Now, how do you spot a good teacher? There are a lot of English teachers out there, but there are not that many decent ones. Now, you don't have to have the best teacher in the world, you just need a decent one, okay? And so that means avoiding the really bad teachers. So rather than identifying a really good teacher, I will tell you how to spot a really bad teacher and run away, right? So from the horror stories that I've heard from my students, there are basically 2 really bad types of teachers. One type is a teacher that only teaches grammar through grammar exercises, okay? They bring a worksheet to every lesson. There's some grammar point like present perfect continuous. They give you an explanation and then you do the exercises from the worksheet. And they do this every lesson. There's very little communication. There's very little sort of interaction between the teacher and the students. Now, what's wrong with doing exercises? Well, first of all, I mean, if you're preparing for a test of some kind, then unfortunately this is unavoidable. You have to do it. But if your goal is to learn to communicate, grammar exercises are not going to help you. They can actually be harmful. And I've seen this many times. Students who have just been studying grammar and worksheets, what happens is that they learn the language through their eyes and they process it through their eyes and through the visual parts of the brain. But language arose as a set of sounds, not as a set of diagrams, right? So any language, I believe, if it's not a programming language, has to be studied through and perceived and processed through your ears and through the auditory part of the brain. But if all you ever encounter are diagrams, here's a point in the past and there's an action before and up to that point in the past, and then you have to map something and you have to fill some gaps, what happens is that your brain stops seeing it as a language and starts seeing it as a mathematical problem, right? Every sentence becomes a mathematical problem, an equation that has to be solved. But that's no way to communicate, right? And I've seen this many times, that you talk to people and they start drawing diagrams in their minds, imagining, oh, is this the present perfect? Okay, so that means I have to put the subject first, or is this a question that I need to put the auxiliary verb first? And they do all of this in their minds as if they were solving a mathematical problem. But by the time you decode and decipher everything, the conversation has moved on. So students like this don't understand English very well, and they can't speak. So that's one type of bad teachers. The other extreme is a teacher who comes to the lesson, has a chat with you for 45 minutes, 50 minutes, 60 minutes, like a friend, and then they get up and leave. What's wrong with that? So, first of all, language is not just speaking, right? It has many different aspects, and I think that a good teacher should help you develop all the aspects of a language. It's true, as I've mentioned earlier, that there are a lot of online tools that can help you with your listening, reading, even writing, right? ChatGPT can give you a writing assignment, and it can even give you feedback. So it's true that the highest value you can get from a teacher is this person-to-person interaction. But if it's just a chat, there are risks. One risk is that there will be no structure, right? You'll just be spending time with someone, and by the end, when someone asks you, okay, what have you learned? You'll think hard, and then you won't be able to say anything, because it's like you're not going anywhere, you know? And what happens even more often is that you run out of topics to talk about, and you end up talking about the same 3-4 subjects all over again, which is very limiting in terms of your ability to communicate. So some people can talk about fishing. They love fishing, and they can talk about it all day, all night. But that won't help them if they need to deal with an angry customer on the phone, or if they have to give a presentation, right? So when a student comes to me and they say, you know what, I don't want to work with a textbook, although I'm a big fan of textbooks, because the easiest way for a teacher to give the language course a structure is to follow a textbook. And that textbook was designed by experts, you know, and so not everything is on the teacher's shoulders. The teacher doesn't have to design everything, you know. A lot of work has been done for them already, which is a huge benefit for the teacher, but also for the student, because you are going from point A to point B. And at the end, when someone asks you, okay, what have you learned? You can open the textbook and say, yes, you know what? I can use this grammar. I know this vocabulary. I can handle this situation. I can talk about this topic, you know? And then when you finish a textbook, the next step is always clear. Whereas you can do conversations forever without actually going anywhere and getting anywhere. But I also have students who come to me and they say, you know what, I don't want to work with a textbook. I just want to chat. And I don't send them away, but I know that puts a lot of pressure, and it puts demands on me as a teacher, because I have to create the structure without necessarily letting the student know about it. And I have to make sure that the topics don't repeat, and that the things that we talk about are meaningful for the student. Another important thing, which is true whether you're working with a textbook or not, is feedback. These teachers who only sit down and go for 50 minutes often forget feedback. But that's probably the most important thing that a teacher can give you, right? They identify your weaknesses, and then they help you get better. There are two ways of going about this. One is the immediate feedback. So when you make a mistake, the teacher corrects you immediately. Some people don't like this approach because they say that if I keep interrupting you constantly, you will lose the thread, you will lose your train of thought. And it's also not good for the student's confidence, because if they are constantly reminded of, oh, you've made this mistake, after a while, they may feel that maybe they don't want to talk anymore because they are so bad at English, because they make so many mistakes. The other approach is not correcting students immediately, but sitting down with a pen and a piece of paper, almost like a therapist, and making notes. And at the end of the lesson, there's some feedback, okay? Or maybe 3/4 into the lesson, the conversation stops, and then the teacher says, okay, here's some feedback, and now let's practice. And then and if they find a weakness, they practice it with you consistently, not just once, right? Because in order to improve, especially if for some people struggle with pronunciation, some people make grammar errors, yeah, and these things don't go away just like that. So the teacher has to make sure that whatever weakness has been discovered is worked on consistently. And the same is true for vocabulary. Ideally, even in a conversation lesson, without any materials, without following any predetermined structure, you should ideally learn some new vocabulary. But again, if you only hear it once, you'll forget it, right? So it's up to the teacher to make sure that whatever you have learned, you are going to encounter again and again until you can use it actively. Okay, so now you know the first step. The first step is finding a good teacher, or rather avoiding bad teachers.